Welcome back, everyone. This is part 2 for the chapter at Dotheboys Hall, written by Charles Dickens. In the first part, we read about a new teacher joining the school whose name is Nicholas Nickleby, and he learns that the headmaster and his wife, they give the children with the medicine, which is Brimstone. It protects the children against the ailments such as cold, cough, stomach problems. Second, it reduced their appetite, it reduced their diet, which would save the money of the headmaster and the wife to arrange food for the children. So they provided them with that medicine so that they will eat less food, which is ethically and morally wrong on the part of the headmaster and the wife, as they are the ones responsible for providing good nourishment, nutrition to the children. But were they following it? Were they fulfilling their duty? No, not at all. And then one boy enters, Smike, who was called in to ask about the spoon because Mrs. Squeers was not able to find the spoon with which she would be serving them that medicine. And when he enters, Mr. Squeers gives him a slap on the side of his head and asks him about the spoon. And he suggests the spoon might be in the pocket of Mrs. Squeers. Okay, let's continue. This indeed turned out to be the case, and this was true. But since Mrs. Squeers had said earlier that she did not have it, Smike got another box on the ear for contradicting his mistress. And this was true that the spoon was really in the pocket of Mrs. Squeers. But since she had already said that she did not have it, so Smike was given another slap on his head for going against his mistress, for speaking something opposite of what the teacher said. You will get a sound thrashing, boy, if you aren't more respectful in future, she said before going her way. She here is Mrs. Squeers, and she says that I'll give you punishment next time if you are not respectful towards me. Did you disrespect the teacher? No, not at all. But since he said something opposite of what Mrs. Squeers had said, the boy was given a slap. And she also warned him that you will get much more strict punishment if next time you behave like this. She is more than a mother to them, said Squeers admiringly. She does things for the boys, Nickleby, that most mothers wouldn't do for their own sons. And then he compares Mrs. Squeers with the real mothers of these boys. And he says he admires Mrs. Squeers. He praises Mrs. Squeers in front of Nickleby and says that she's more than a mother to them. Was she behaving like a mother to Smike? Not at all. She was serving them with brimstone and treacle, which was a medicine which would reduce their appetite. Will a mother ever give such a tonic? No, never. So was she behaving like mother? No. I should think not, sir, answered Nicholas as he followed Squeers across the yard to the schoolroom. And Nicholas says that I agree with you. I should think not, it means I agree with you. Since Nicholas wanted this job so badly, he did not oppose Mr. Squeers. He could see and he could understand that Mrs. Squeers was not behaving ethically with the children. She was not at all behaving like a mother, but he did not have a choice apart from agreeing with Mr. Squeers. So these two statements where most mothers wouldn't do for their own sons what Mrs. Squeers is doing, and I should think not, that means I totally agree with you, sir. Both these lines are an example of irony. I hope everybody now can recall what is irony, when what you are speaking and what you mean are opposite of each other. So this is an example of irony. Mrs. Squeers' cruel behavior towards this boy is the exact opposite of a mother's care. A mother cares for her children. She would give you proper food for your growth and development. She would never think of reducing your appetite. And the reply which was given by Nickleby was also ironical. He means that most mothers would not in fact treat their children in the same manner as Mrs. Squeers. When he says, "I should think not, sir," he apparently meant that mothers would never treat their children in the way Mrs. Squeers treated the boys in the school. Okay? "There," said the schoolmaster, as they stepped into the bare, dirty room, "this is our shop." And here the schoolmaster says, "There," and he points out towards the schoolroom. And it was a bare, that means it was empty, not much furniture was there in the room, and it was a dirty room. It wasn't clean, like a classroom should be. And he says, "This is our shop." That means this is the place where we all teach the children. Nicholas looked around with dismay at the windows, stopped up with old copybooks and paper, the old rickety desks and discolored walls. This is a description of the classroom. He looks around with dismay. What is dismay? He was concerned, he was worried as well as taken aback, he was surprised. When he looked around and he saw that the windows were covered up with old copybooks and paper, the old rickety desks, that means the furniture was not in a good condition. The desks were shaky, they were broken, and discolored walls. The walls were not even painted properly. But it was looking at the pupils. But when he looked upon the students of the class, pupils, the students, when he looked upon the students who were dressed in odd, that means strange, ill-fitting clothes, they were wearing the uniform which did not fit them, that his hopes about the establishment dimmed. But when he looked upon the condition of the students who were wearing those odd-fitting clothes, his hopes, his expectations from the establishment, from the school, they dimmed. That means he lost all hopes, all expectations that he had from the school. He was not expecting anything now. They were pale and haggard faces, boys of stunted growth, and others whose thin legs would hardly bear their stooping bodies. They were pale, that means their faces looked tired, and their haggard faces. Their faces looked tired, they were not bright. They were boys of stunted growth, that means they were malnourished, they were weak, and others whose thin legs would hardly bear their stooping bodies. They were so thin and it looked as if their legs would not be able to carry the weight of their bending bodies. Stooping, they were bending because since they were not given proper food, the bones were not able to grow properly, because of which their bodies were stooping. Their bodies had become bent. They were faces that told of young lives which from childhood had borne cruelty and neglect, and their faces were clearly showing how since childhood all they have suffered is from cruelty and ignorance. They have been ignored, their health has been ignored since the childhood. They have never been given proper nourishment and food. These faces would have been handsome, but were darkened with the scowl of sullen, dogged suffering. And he says that these children deserved much better. But here in this school, all they were getting, all they had ever got was scowl of sullen, dogged suffering. That means they were suffering from the continuous bitterness and anger. They were not at all confident. All of them feared from the headmaster and the wife. They were not at all confident. Their faces showed that they were scared. Their faces were covered with fear. They were not at all healthy. Their bodies were weak. They were wearing ill-fitted clothes. That means the condition of the school as well as the children was not up to the mark. He had no expectation from the school after looking at all this. Mrs. Squeers stood at the desk, that means she was standing beside the table, with a large basin of brimstone and treacle. That means with a large bowl which consisted the medicine. Using an enormous wooden spoon, that means she used a large big wooden spoon, she served this to each boy, who gulped it down, who swallowed it in one go. That means at once, under fear of punishment. So no, not even one child said no for the medicine. Why? Because they feared of punishment. They knew that if they go against the wish of headmaster and his wife, then they would be given punishment. So they gulped it down in one go. They swallowed the medicine at once. After everyone had been trickled, that means after everyone was given the medicine, Smike shuffled out with the basin. That means he was given the responsibility of carrying the bowl back. A mere breakfast was followed. That means a small breakfast was followed. That means after the medicine was given to them, then breakfast was served, and the amount, that means the amount of food which was given to them, was very low. It was not enough for them, comprising small bowls of brown porridge eaten with a minute wedge of bread. And what did the breakfast have? It had small bowls of brown porridge. Porridge are oats. With that, a very small piece of bread. Nicholas too had this. That means Nicholas was given the same breakfast along with a slice of bread and butter given to him by virtue of his position as a teacher. But along with that, he was also given a slice of bread and butter. Why? Because he was at the position of a teacher. He was given this benefit by virtue. That means he was given this benefit because he was working here as a teacher. He was not a student here. He was a teacher. That is why he was given this extra benefit. He was given this extra breakfast. Do you think it was correct at the part of the headmaster and the mistress to provide with such a limited breakfast to the children? Will that be enough? Not at all. That is the reason they were malnourished. All the children of the school were weak. They were not healthy. Okay, we have completed the explanation of this page. Let's do this question. What did Nicholas get for breakfast and why? What did he get? So Nicholas got, we will use past tense, get will become got. Nicholas got a slice of bread and butter. Why? Because he was working as a teacher in the boarding school. He had got this benefit as he was working as a teacher in the boarding school. Alright, I hope you are clear with the explanation of this page. I'll continue in the next video. Alright.